Hello, everyone. Well, do you know that we should eat our food according to different seasons? Ayurveda has the concept of modifying our diet according to seasons, and that's what we are going to explore today in our session. I am Amita from Nourish Talk, a platform for natural and holistic therapies. Presenting this fascinating topic, we have Sangeeta Agara, a NAMA certified Ayurveda wellness coach from Canada. Welcome, Sangeeta.
Thank you, Amita. It's been a pleasure.
All right, so we are going to get started. What do you have for us today in this session, Sangeeta?
Well, hold your horses. Before we begin this session, I'd like to start off with a couple of prayers. Samasta Devata Gurubhyo Namaha. Namami Dhanvantarim Adidevam Surasurairvandita Pada Padmam Loke Jararubhayam Mrityunasham Dhataramisham Vividaushadhina. This was a prayer in reverence to the presiding deity of Sri Dhanvantari. If we can just go back a slide. We received the knowledge of Ayurveda through this divine form. You're able to see the imagery on your left, on your right. He's also known as Amrita Kalashahasta, the holder of the part of immortality. According to Vedic injunctions, any activity that doesn't bring us remembrance of the divine is a useless activity. So let's begin invoking the blessings of this divine form. And let's do this for the pleasure of the divine within you and the divine within me and the indweller of all beings. So thanks for the introduction, Amita, and a warm welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining us today on this lovely Sunday. The topic I have for you is on time, the cycle of time, specifically the seasons, and its a relationship with food and how it affects our health, all encapsulated in what is called a seasonal dietetics in Ayurveda, also known as a Ritucharya. Okay. So if we can just go back one slide, I'm going to start the introduction into this topic from a little story, a parable, if you will, to help illustrate the importance of time. So once there lived a wise old man. He had 4 sons. And being wise that he was, he wanted to teach his sons a very valuable lesson that would serve them well in their lifetime. So he decides to send his eldest son to visit a pear tree, which was at a distance from where he lived, and asks him to report back. His son follows his father's words and he visits the tree, comes back. After a few months, the wise man sends his second son to do the same. The second son goes and visits the tree and comes back. Similarly, after a few months, he asks his third son, and then after another few months, he summons his fourth son to do the same. All of them follow suit. And when all the sons had visited the pear tree and had returned, he assembles all of his 4 sons and asks them what they saw and asks them to describe what they saw. So the first son replies that he saw a tree that was bare, dry, bent, and twisted, almost lifeless, if you will. And the second son disagrees with the first and says that he saw a tree that was green shoots, indicating full of promise. And the third son disagrees with both of them and says that he saw a beautiful sight. He saw a lush green tree full of blossoms, smelling really sweet and full of life. The fourth son disagrees with all of them and says that what he saw was a beautiful sight indeed. He saw a mature tree laden with fruits and full of fulfillment. The wise man reveals that indeed all of them were right, but and that they had seen the same tree in different seasons. So the first son was sent during winter, the second son was sent during the spring season, the third during summer, and the fourth son during fall. So they had seen the same tree in different seasons. The essence of the story is that time alone is a factor that can bring about such intense transformation in our environment. The tree has remained the same throughout, but the influence of time has given it different characteristics and attributes to the tree, making it look very different to the people. So this paints a picture of the power of time. Time is indeed responsible for bringing about transformation. It is for this reason there's a verse in Sanskrit, Kalo hi nama Bhagavan, meaning time is a divine force. It brings about transformation. It can transform substances, and it can transform us and the environment around us. Now, have you all heard of chrono medicine? It's yes.
I don't know. So should we go to the next slide?
And no, just stay with me. So chrono medicine is an emerging field of study. It's touted as a new frontier in medicine. It's a field of study that deals with the effect of medical intervention in relationship with time. Now, this might be an emerging study in the field of medicine, but this concept has been long established in Ayurveda and long adopted and practiced widely among the Ayurvedic professionals. We refer to it as Bhaishajya Kala. This refers to altering the efficacy of a drug by electing an appropriate time for its administration. So we are able to bring about suitable transformation just by electing the time. So such is the power of time. And it is also for this reason that we call it as Karana Dravya, because it is the causative factor in the universe.
That's a fascinating story, Sangeeta. Should we move on to the next one?
Yes.
All right. So let's talk about what should we eat to our topic. Importance of seasonal dietetics.
Yes, and that's a good question. And before we get into that, I want to take a minute to understand, share with you the importance of what the cycles of time do to us. So there are different cycles of time in nature, and that affects our human physiology. There are different rhythms in nature. We have the day cycle, we have the night cycle, and then we have the monthly cycle governed by the moon called lunations. And then we have the seasonal cycles, which is the topic of today's discussion. The reason why it's important is because it's important that we align ourselves to these naturally occurring rhythms. By aligning ourselves to these naturally occurring rhythms, we are able to bring harmony to our body, and we're able to prevent diseases. This is a quotation from one of the classical texts of Ayurveda called Charaka Samhita. Here, Acharya Charaka is stating that one who follows a seasonal regimen would be blessed with enhanced strength and luster. So no need for your expensive creams or lotions, just follow seasonal dietetics. Just kidding.
That's the best advice you can give to all the women.
Yes, exactly, right? I mean, I mean, if you can appreciate the choice of words, it's not stating that we are able to prevent diseases. It's taking it to another level. It's saying that we're able to enhance strength and we're able to obtain luster, right? So, I mean, what more can we wish for, right?
Sure. All right. Should we move on to the next one?
Yes. Yeah, so moving on to the importance of seasonal dietetics. Why is it important? I mean, we saw that the classical texts are stating that it is important, but let's understand the rationale behind this statement. In order to understand our body and understand our health, it is important to understand the universe around us. And the ancients realized that this was useful. So some of you may have heard of this verse, Yat Pinde Tat Brahmande. It's been made very popular by the yogic philosophy. So the ones who are familiar with the yogic text and yogic traditions would be familiar with this verse. Brahmanda in this context refers to the universe. There's a larger meaning to it. It refers to the cosmic egg and the creation theory, which we don't have time to get into. But for the purpose of this discussion, we can think of Brahmanda as the universe we are part of. And Pinda in this context refers to the living entities. So i.e. you and I, i.e. the microcosm, and Brahmanda is our macrocosm that we are living in. So the essence of this verse is that whatever exists in the macrocosm also exists within us, and whatever exists within us can also be found in the universe at large. This is a very profound statement. What this is telling us is that we are a tiny replica in the universe. And because of this tight inherent relationship between us and our immediate environment, whatever vibrations that occur in the universe also impact us. This cause and effect relationship between us and the universe is inevitable. There's no way around it. It's a very tightly linked relationship. We are part of the universe, and the two are inseparable. Once we understand this concept, then we can understand the role the seasons or different times or the cycles of time, how they play out in our own health and in our own daily lives.
Okay. So let's talk about the seasons according to Ayurveda.
Yes, so the picture that you're seeing here is an illustration of the mapping of the 4 seasons that we typically experience here in North America, much of Canada and the US, and in relation to the 6 seasons of specified in Ayurveda. And also depicted is the corresponding solar months. The outer ring indicates that. I'm going to start off with how the movement of sun brings about changes in the season. You can see the sun icon. I've indicated that in 2 different places, one in mid-January and another in mid-July, which is right about now. And sun and its movement is really important in determining the seasons. It's for this reason that sun is hailed as Ritukarta Prabhakaraha in the very popular Aditya Hridaya hymn in praise of the sun deity. He is revered as the one who brings about seasons. The seasons are governed by the movement of the sun in the universe. So the first 6 months of the year, starting from about mid-January to mid-July, is referred to as what is called as Adana Kala. I apologize. I haven't included diacritics here, but you can pay intonation to the pronunciation. So Adana means taking away. So what is it that this period is taking away from us? So what happens starting from mid-January when sun moves into the sign of Capricorn through to mid-July is sun gains strength. So there is increased activity of sun and its influence on earth. As a result, the heat builds up in the environment and the moisture from the earth is drawn up and leaving the earth dry towards the end of summer. So summer season is where we'll observe that it's fairly dry and there is a lot of heat element in the environment. So this Adana Kala culminates in Grishma Ritu, which is our summer, and it culminates in mid-July. So according to Ayurveda, we, keeping all other things constant, we enjoy best of immunity between the months of December and January when there is quite a bit of moisture. And then mid-July is when we are at our weakest point in terms of Vyadi Kshamitva, that is the Ayurvedic speak for immunity. And this is the reason why we're seeing an increased surge of COVID-19 cases. And if you observe, these surges are happening in the Sun Belt, states like Florida, Texas, or even countries, tropical countries like India, which escaped the surges during January, February, March period, but they're seeing surges now. This is because naturally there's less immunity. Now, for countries like Canada, which are further north, there is still quite a bit of moisture. So we are sort of, we have observed a flattening of the curve. We're not seeing the surges like the places that are closer to the equator. So the movement of the sun and the season affects our immunity. It affects the plant growth and it affects our body, whether we are oblivious to it or not. And then the opposite happens during the months leading from mid-July to mid-January. This period is known as Visarga Kala. Visarga means to give. So what is it that it's giving? It's giving us the strength. So during these months, there is a rainfall. And then because of rainfall, there is harvest that provides us food, and then there is nourishment. So this is a very nourishing period. And another thing to note here is that there's something called as Ritu Sandhya or Sandhi, Ritu Sandhi, and we are actually in the middle of one. Ritu Sandhya refers to the 15-day period between the end of one season to the onset of the next. So if you look at the slide, so we're right in the middle of transition between Grishma Ritu and Varsha Ritu. This is a transitional period. It's it's an important period because this allows us time to switch gears to adapt our dietary and lifestyle practices for the upcoming season. And it's a very sensitive period, and it has elements or characteristics of both the preceding season and the season to come. So right now, until about July 23rd, we're going to see elements of both summer and rainy season combined. So I'm here in Toronto. We've had a fairly dry season, which is not atypical, but like almost like clockwork. Just since the last couple of days, we're seeing dark clouds looming over us, indicating rain. So we've had some mild showers, and it's still looking fairly cloudy. I think we're going to receive some showers today as well. So this leads up to the rainy season. So this is very typical. We receive most rainfall during August, and this is true for much of North America or regions of the world that follow the four-season pattern. So we can see how seasons play a role in the change in environment, and also there's a corresponding increase and decrease in elements in the environment, which correspond to an increase and decrease of elements in our own body. So for example, when it is summer, there is increase of or culmination of the heat element. So there's a gradual increase of heat that occurs through spring season, and it culminates in summer, and the heat of summer is intense, right? And that's why we feel hot during summer. It's normal. But the thing to do is we have to stay balanced by counteracting the effects or influences of these elements, so that we are not allowing for accumulation of these imbalances in our body. So if we don't follow the seasonal dietetics during summer, what it's going to do is it's going to lead us to a disease state in, say, couple seasons down the line, say in late autumn or winter time.
Okay, so let's move on to what exactly we should do now.
Exactly. So that's a good segue into this slide. So now that we understand how the seasons play out, let's take a look at what it is that we should be doing to stay balanced during different seasonal changes. So this slide is an illustration of some of the dietary practices and lifestyle practices that we can adopt to mitigate the seasonal changes or effects that occur throughout the year. Due to, this is a very extensive slide. We could spend a lot of time on this, but in the essence of time, we're gonna stay focused on just one season, the season we're currently in. I'm gonna walk you through it as an example. But the point of this slide is that there is a need to align ourselves with the cycle of seasons by electing appropriate dietary habits. And what this includes is there are two elements to this. One is we should elect proper tastes, and then we should focus on electing appropriate quality or characteristics of food. Now that I think most of us know, there are 6 tastes in our food: sweet, sour, salty, bitter, pungent, and astringent. And then in terms of quality or gunas, as they call it in Ayurveda, there are about 20 that are listed. A few examples would be hot, cold, dense, light, and heavy, liquid versus solids, oily versus dry, so on and so forth. Those are just some examples of the texture or characteristics of food that we should be paying attention to. And then in terms of our lifestyle protocols, there are some activities that are forbidden and some that are indicated or suggested for a different season. So let me walk you through what's indicated or suggested for the summer season, the season we are currently in. We still have about, today is July 12th. The sun moves into Cancer on July 15th, which is the solar ingress or Sankranti day. And that will actually transition into the Visarga Kala, or the downward movement of the sun. And that's the beginning of our Varsha Ritu or rainy season. But we still have about between now and July 23rd, we can still dabble with some of the summer protocols and gradually adopt towards the rainy season protocols. So what to favor in terms of taste for summer? Sweet foods should be favored. And then you want to favor foods that are liquid, because we are at the risk of dehydration. So we want to make sure that we stay hydrated. And like I mentioned, sun sucks up moisture from the earth, leaving it dry. So you want to include more of liquids in your diet. So think of, juices, even plain cold water, and lots of liquid in your diet. So try and avoid dry foods like popcorn, potato chips. That's not gonna serve us well. And foods that are not overly hot, you want to stay cool, like tender coconut juice or something to that effect would be really useful, or even just fruit juices that is naturally cool. The trick here is that it shouldn't be frozen. You don't want to go overboard. So that's why I'm going to share a couple of recipes that do just the right trick that I'm referring to, and in just a little bit. But what this is saying is that you don't want to eat anything hot, and you want to stay away from alcohol. And I'm drawing attention to this because there are some things that are very cultural. I know here in Canada, summer is a really good time for socializing, and it's a really good time to be outdoor. And a lot of people, if we call it the patio season, it's really beautiful when the sun comes out and we have longer summer days. And a lot of people engage in social activities, and there's a lot of indulgence in alcohol. So the patio season invites, people gathering over drinks, alcoholic drinks. And this is a big no-no. This is in violation to Ritucharya. You can get away from consuming alcohol in other seasons, but it can be really unforgiving if you indulge in alcohol during summer, because it leaves you really, really dry. So that is something you want to avoid. Stay away from overly salty and sour food. Also, the thing to note here is that this is not to say that the foods, the taste listed under avoid means that you should completely avoid. Obviously, you should have some salt in your food. But what this is saying is that you should have less of it and more of the taste that is listed on the top under the favor section. So you should include more of sweets and less of salty and sour foods during summer. And lifestyle, try not to exercise too much during summertime, because remember I said that summer is a time when our immunity is at its lowest. We are weakened, we don't have enough strength. That's why it's very common, very typical for people to feel very tired very soon during summertime. So you don't want to overexert yourself. Now, again, this is not saying that you should not engage in any physical activity. That is not the point. The point is that you don't want to engage in any strenuous activity. So for instance, you don't want to go running, or you don't want to practice marathon. At least not during midday, when sun is at its peak between say 11 a.m. and 3 p.m., that's the time you want to avoid. So moderate activity like walking or stretching, those gentle exercises, yoga practices, those are fine, but you want to make sure that you don't overexert yourself. And moon bathing is a very relaxing ritual that everybody can engage in, and it's ideal during summertime because moon brings in that cooling energy and counteracts with the solar energy, which brings up the heat element. And it's very simple to do. All you need to do is we just need to expose ourselves to the cooling rays of the full moon or the days leading up to full moon, the waxing moon phase, and just bathe, just expose yourself to the gentle rays of the moon. So it's a very relaxing activity, and you can do it as a social activity as well. You can invite your friends and then have a small gathering perhaps, and it's very enjoyable.
Okay, so I just noticed a couple of things on the slide. Maybe you can explain on oleations and atapa. What are these words? What do these words exactly mean for in Ayurveda?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up, and I'm glad you asked. So oleation refers to what is called as abhyanga in Ayurveda. It refers to oiling, external application of oil on our body. It is an extremely relaxing protocol. So the intent is to moisturize our body and loosen the tissues of the body. It's the oil that we elect have the ability to penetrate deep into the tissues and bring about great amount of relaxation. It is highly recommended to engage in abhyanga, or at least on a weekly basis, during late autumn and winter months. So winter months are often very dry months, especially if you're living in cold climate. And you can, dry skin is a hallmark of winter, right? So we all have experienced chapped skin. So abhyanga is a very soothing activity. It involves external application of warm Ayurvedic oils and massaging it gently over your body. So it's a full body application all the way from the top of your head all the way down to your feet. So, and it's if you haven't already tried it, I would highly recommend it. Don't try it now during summer months, but definitely want to give it a try during winter months. And atapa is one of my favorite activities. Atapa seva is essentially sunbathing. So during winter months, when there is not enough sunlight, it is recommended that we expose ourselves to the beneficial rays of the sun, but during appropriate time. So the first Muhurat, or the first 48 minutes after sunrise, is considered an appropriate time to engage in sun exposure. And also the Muhurat after that. So roughly about an hour and a half after sunrise is considered appropriate, and it's very beneficial. It's called Atapa Seva.
All right. All right. Now that the summer is here, we would love if you could share a couple of recipes for us.
Indeed. I think this is the exciting part of the session. All right. So the very first we have is Rasālā. This is my favorite of the two. This is an excellent substitute for ice cream or even frozen yogurt, both of which are not recommended in Ayurveda for the reason that it blocks the srotas or channels. We want to avoid anything that's frozen. Rasālā is an excellent dish that has all the right taste and texture and elements to counteract the harmful effects of summer. And it's very simple to make. You don't need too many ingredients. It's most of the ingredients you need are easily available. So there are two main ingredients you're going to need. The very first is you're going to need thick curds. Now, I want to draw attention to the term curds because I know we have a mix of audiences. Some of you joining us may be of Indian origin, and some of you are Western audience. So I want to clarify here by stating that curds is not the curds in terms of Western context. So this is not your cottage cheese. What I'm referring to here is dahi. For those of you who are of Indian origin, you would know what I mean. So the thick curds here refer to the milk solids obtained by lactic acid fermentation of milk. So when you ferment milk with curd culture, then you would obtain the thick curd. So it's very similar to yogurt. There is a distinction between Indian curds and yogurt. We're not going to get into that, but it is something that is obtained by lactic acid fermentation. I think that's an important thing to remember here. I'm not referring to paneer curd. So if any of you think that this is the milk solid obtained by mixing acidic substance like lime or lemon, that's typically, and separating it, and that typically gives you paneer. So I'm not referring to that, and it's not cottage cheese. It's your dahi, as they call it in much of India. And also it's important that it's homemade. So yogurt in our context is very industrialized. It has different strains of bacteria, but the dahi from India is typically homemade, and it has only one culture. It has the strain from lactobacillus bacteria, and that aids in the lactic acid fermentation of the milk, and that renders the milk very digestible. So the good thing about this dish is that this can be easily tolerated by people who have lactose intolerance because there's not much lactose left after all the fermentation, and it is well tolerated by people who have different allergies. So this dish is gluten-free, nut-free. I think the only section of population that this dish doesn't cater to is perhaps vegans, because there is dairy here. Okay. And so you're going to need curds, and then you're going to need sugar. You need 1 measure of sugar. This is your pure cane sugar. And then you're going to need 4 measures of curds. And remember, this is a transliteration of the Ayurvedic text. So that I'm using those pure terms. It's transliterated. So that's why you find terms like curds, which has a completely different meaning in a Western context. So that's why I wanted to clarify that. And then you're going to need some really simple blend of spices that is very common in our kitchen cabinet. So you're going to need black pepper, cardamom, and clove. Remember, the spices that are chosen it not just enhances the taste profile of the dish, but they are chosen keeping in mind the healthy balance of the dish. So for example, black pepper has what is called as bedhana quality. So it is able to break down the fats that are in curd. So it helps in digesting the dish. And so does cardamom and clove. They're also both excellent digestives. So don't skimp on the spices. Don't make this dish with just curds and sugar. Be sure to introduce the spices because there's a good reason why it's in there. It helps promote digestion and it helps balance the dish and makes it very healthy. Everything in Ayurveda is the goal is to make sure that it's healthy. The taste is just an outcome of a perfectly balanced dish. That's not the main goal, but it's sort of like an added bonus, if you will. And the final ingredient is, I think, something that might be a little bit harder to find. It's called edible camphor. For the Western audience, you may find it difficult to find it in regular grocery stores. At least I haven't seen it in my experience, but you can easily find it in Indian grocery stores. And word of caution, if you haven't used this substance before in your cooking, start small. This is an intensely fragrant aromatic substance, and just a little bit goes a very long way. So you want to make sure that you're using just a teeny tiny bit, just a little bit. And I think Amita knows what I'm talking about. It's a very powerful, a very potent substance. It can easily overpower a dish. So make sure that you're using a very small quantity. And so the method to prepare this, it's very simple. It involves very few steps. You want to mix curds with sugar, and you want to churn the mixture. Now, this is a very important step. Churning is an action brought out. Just watch my hands here. So you see that wooden stick that I have indicated on the picture there. That's the wooden churning stick that is again available in Indian stores that carry kitchen utensils. So what you want to do is you want to bring about the churning action like so. This is important. It's not the same as mixing. Remember, mixing involves just one direction, but churning action involves two directions. So like so, if you're watching my hands, you will know. So this is the churning action. And this is important because it transfers that churning motion into the dish, and it makes the dish more digestible. So the foods that are prepared without churning has a different effect, digestive ability and bioavailability, than when compared to dishes that have been prepared with this churning motion. So that's the thing to remember. And once you're done with that, just pour it into an earthen pot and let it rest for a couple of hours. And then you top it off with the spice blend that I just talked about, and then it's ready to serve.
That's great. So let's, looking at our time, I want to allow some time for question and answers as well. So let's talk about our second recipe. That looks really yummy to me.
Okay. Just on the previous recipe, word of caution again, it's contraindicated for people who are trying to lose weight and who are diabetic. So if you fall into one of those categories, you want to avoid that because it's extremely nourishing and strengthening. So it won't help in your weight loss goals. This is an Ayurvedic smoothie, if you will. It's called Mantha. Mantha is it's a classical preparation of Ayurveda. What it means is it's a fruit mash, if you will. So all manthas in Ayurveda have this mushy consistency, and hence the name Mantha. This one in particular is Karjuradi Mantha. It's made using dates or kharjura. This one requires a few more ingredients than the previous one. So I've listed the ingredients here. It's you need dates, raisins, pomegranate, and then you need kokum. This might be hard to find. You can find them in Indian grocery stores. Kokum is, if you can bring your attention to the image on the extreme right down at the bottom, it's this one here, this little thing that you see, dark red and deep red in color, fourth from the left. So that's your kokum. That's what it looks like. What it is it's the dried pulp of a fruit. This is grown in the Vindhya mountains of the Indian subcontinent, Western Ghats as what it's called, and it's very commonly used as a condiment or an ingredient in some of the dishes. It has excellent cooling properties. So it's ideal for summer season and to beat the heat of summer. And then you have Indian gooseberry. The thing to note is that this is Indian gooseberry, not there are other kinds of gooseberry, but it's in this case it's very specific. It's the Indian gooseberry, again available in Indian stores. And then you're going to need sugar candy. This is the crystallized form of sugar that you see right here on the screen to, again, image at the bottom right and the ingredient at the far right. So that's your crystallized sugar or sugar candy. If you don't have access to this, you can use just regular plain sugar. Just make sure that it is sourced from pure sugar cane juice. So cane sugar is what you want to use, not other kinds of sugar. Then you're going to need water. So method for preparation, you're going to start off by soaking all the dry ingredients. And then soak them in good amount of water for about an hour, and then just blend them along with water until you get a mushy consistency. Then that's important. So you want to make sure that it's not too runny or too thick. Your smoothie consistency is what you want to aim for. And then again, pour it into an earthen pot. I've included a picture here. So for those of you who are not familiar with what an earthen pot looks like, this is the imagery. It's available here in Toronto in Indian stores. It's not that hard to find. You can find it. The important thing is it should not be glazed. And it has a cooling properties that gets transferred to the dish, to the substances that are kept in the pot. That's why it's an important step. And then that's it. And let it rest for a couple of hours and your mantha is ready to serve. And this dish is very nourishing. It relieves thirst and burning sensation, which are classical signs of summer. It helps in building ojas, which in turn helps build vyadi kshamitva, or immunity, as we call it. And again, serving portion for both of these, it may be tempting, but try to do portion control. You want to keep it under just shy of half a cup. That would be an ideal serving. And then again, contraindicated for people with diabetes or people who are overweight.
This actually looks really good. You know, the interesting thing is kokum I found on Amazon. So for our listeners, you know, who don't know where to get some of the ingredients, I just wanted to share that kokum, you can buy it from Amazon. A lot of these ingredients, what Sangeeta has been talking about, at least in US. So
Yes.
I don't know about
Yes, that is a very good point, Amita. I'm glad you brought it up. Yes. So yes, even the edible camphor can be sourced from Amazon or eBay. You know, nowadays we have all these online shopping platforms that uh, bring all the ingredients from around the world to us at our fingertips. So yeah, we can definitely source them from those.
So we have a question on this recipe, Sangeeta. Somebody's asking, can we add nuts to this or not? Like almonds or some of the other nuts that Ayurveda talks about.
Yeah, that's a good question. And the short answer is no. So there are different kinds of, like I said, mantha is a classical preparation. There are different kinds of manthas. This is just an example, one kind of mantha. So in this preparation, it's fruit mash. So there's another, this is Karjuradi mantha. But there are other manthas like made from barley, and you want to use just barley. Whereas coming to the question of can we add nuts to the exact same one, the short answer is no, because nuts should be had on its own. And it is best if it's not combined with fruits like pomegranate. It has different taste profile and qualities that hinder digestion. And nuts are considered very heavy to digest. So you don't want to introduce nuts in here. But what I can tell you is if you want to make a mantha out of nuts, what you can do is, for instance, you can soak, just take one kind of nut, maybe it's cashew nuts or almonds, soak them overnight or for a couple of hours till they become soft. And then you can blend them in a blender, and then you can bring it to a nice mushy consistency and add some sugar, and you can enjoy that. That would be your mantha, but just make sure that you don't combine these fruits along with your nuts. Another thing to note while making mantha is that when you don't have all of these ingredients available, you can alter the recipe a little bit. But the key is that you want to keep the proportion constant. So for instance, you need to have one measure of your dry fruits to 4 cups of water. So that's the measurement you want to keep in mind. So even for nuts, you can have one measure of your nut of choice, be it almonds or cashew nuts, and then 4 measures of cold water.
Okay. So this, I think, just to conclude your talk, Sangeeta.
Yes, so that brings us to the end of this session. And I picked up this illustration to end this session because, if you notice, I started off the session with the depiction of a tree, and I thought it would be a good way to end this session with the illustration of tree as well. So in conclusion, the message of this presentation is that if we align ourselves with the laws of nature, then we are able to bring harmony into our body and bring about good health. So look at the picture to your left. These are coconut trees or palm trees. They're very lean. They look like they don't have enough strength, but they're able to resist a storm by bending. That's the key here. And look at the picture to your right. You have a tree with a wider stump, seemingly strong, but it has fallen to the ground during a storm. So what this is saying is that if we yield well to the forces of nature, then we're able to resist storms like diseases, the current pandemic we have worldwide. So when we are yielding to the forces of nature, we can avoid disharmony. When we live in harmony with nature, we can bring ourselves in good health. That was the message you with. And thank you all for joining. And I appreciate all of you joining me on this Sunday when you could all be doing something else.
Well, I want to open it up for questions. We have 5 minutes. All right. One is saying very nice session, appreciation. Thank you. We do want some questions. We have 5 minutes. Any questions, please? We have another session actually starting in less than 4 minutes on laughing yoga. If someone wants to practice laughing.
That sounds really interesting. I might even join because that's perfect for a Sunday afternoon, right?
I know. But the cooking one is, I do want to say that Sangeeta is going to come up with her cooking class. We're going to announce her cooking, Ayurveda cooking class soon in like, I think a couple of weeks or so, Sangeeta, you're going to let us know, right?
Yes, that we're aiming for sometime towards the beginning of August. And Amita is going to make announcements, so stay tuned. And that's intended for people, beginners or all sorts of backgrounds. So
great. All right. So, all right. I thought there was a question. It's saying, thank you so much. This was very informative and a great introduction to this topic. Thank you. And you should join for her cooking classes because the way she explains is beautiful with the stories and, with all the legend. I think she does a beautiful job. That's my opinion. Thank you, Sangeeta.
You're very welcome. I'm glad to hear the feedback. So have a lovely rest of the Sunday, all of you. Thank you for joining us again.
Thank you so much for joining us. And please, before we end, let us know your feedback on care@nourishtalk.com. Like us on Facebook. Tell us what are the topics you would like us to bring. In Ayurveda cooking, we have Sangeeta, who's an amazing speaker as well as an amazing cook. Although I haven't tasted her cooking yet, but we will bring more classes and sessions. So please give us the feedback. Before I sign off, Sangeeta, any last words from you?
No, that was all. One thing I wanted to mention was if you could, along with your feedback, let Amita know if this was a suitable timing for you. We wanted to conduct a brief poll to see if the timing was convenient. We're trying to coordinate this session across time zones. Some of you may have been joining us from the West Coast and East Coast. So that's always a challenge, but we try to accommodate as many people as possible so that we are getting we're making sure that the benefits of Ayurveda reaches everybody. So that was all I had.
Yes. And we chose